the latest on Derek Carr, we know that he was in New York. So before we get to the timetable on Carr, how did everything go this weekend from the Jets' perspective in their pitch to bring Derek Carr to the Big Apple?
Yeah, it reportedly went well. It's hard not to get along with Robert Saleh, the head coach, very personable, definitely a player's coach. So all that went well. His brother, David Carr, I'm sure you saw this story, Tim Murray, on NFL Network, where he said it's going to take a while. And I think that's true. I think Carolina is clearly going to be in the picture. And you look at the New Orleans Saints, and maybe Atlanta gets involved. I'm not. I think that's a long shot, but there's been some rumors about that. I think a gentleman on your channel brought up Atlanta. So I think this is definitely going to take a while. There's no rush, and I think that he wants to get the most money he can. And to me, that's the sticking point. I mean, you're there in Las Vegas. You saw him play up close and personal. I would sign a quarterback like Derek Carr, but the idea of spending $30 to $40 million on a player who is 63 and 79 in his career as a starter in the NFL in 9 seasons, I just don't see it, but maybe I'm missing something.
Dan, you obviously cover the Jets very closely there in New York, and this is a franchise that has both the offensive and defensive rookie of the year, and Breece Hall, if he doesn't get hurt, he was the favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. So there's so many young pieces on this roster. You mentioned Robert Saleh, who's thought of so highly. They bring in Nathaniel Hackett to run the offense, which obviously there's ties to him and a gentleman in Green Bay who's sitting in darkness right now. We'll get to that in just a moment. But when you look at this roster, is it fair to say they're a quarterback or away, or they still have a lot of pieces or more pieces to be added for them to be a regular contender in what is, I wouldn't say loaded, but pretty darn good division there in the AFC East?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're one player away. I mean, we all know they lost their last 6 games of the year, and you could blame it all on the quarterback, but that would probably be unfair. The quarterback play wasn't great, don't get me wrong, but there were other problems. They couldn't stop the run late in the year. They're one of those defenses, the old Pete Carroll defense that goes with the smaller, quicker defensive linemen to shoot upfield, and they were getting pushed around a little bit. So they could use some help on the defensive line, especially on the interior, someone to team with Quinnen Williams, and that's a whole other story because they've got to pay Quinnen Williams big bucks this offseason, their star defensive tackle, so they got to save some money for that. Their pass coverage at linebackers not great. They might need a safety. Their offensive line was patchwork at the end of the year. Yes, they have a lot of weapons. And yes, Sauce Gardner looks like an elite corner. And those 3 players you mentioned are very good building blocks when you look at Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and Sauce Gardner. But they are not one player where they have a lot of work to do, though they're heading in the right direction.
Dan Leberfeld is joining us here on Follow the Money. You can follow him on Twitter at Jets Whispers. Check out Jets Confidential magazine and also him on Saturday mornings on SiriusXM NFL Radio. Dan, when you look at Aaron Rodgers, still under contract, we talked to Aaron Nagler yesterday here on the program, and his guess, and it wasn't reporting, he just felt like with the contract situation, ultimately he felt like he'll still be in Green Bay, but he wasn't saying it with massive conviction. He just felt like the situation at hand there with the contract. So, still a lot of unknowns regarding him, but from what you've gathered, and we, saw the quotes from Woody Johnson, if Aaron Rodgers is interested in coming to New York, how aggressive would the Jets be in trading for Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I think they'd be very aggressive. This is a team that has missed the playoffs 12 years in a row. I think that's an NFL high. And the owner clearly is getting frustrated. He's 75 years old now, so he's getting a little more impatient, if you will. So I think they would try to make that happen. The obvious connection with Nathaniel Hackett. And, the team in your backyard, the Las Vegas Raiders, there's a lot of talk about Aaron Rodgers there. The one slight edge I would give the Jets in the whole equation is the fact that the Jets under Nathaniel Hackett as their new offensive coordinator, basically play the same system that Aaron Rodgers has played forever in Green Bay. If Aaron Rodgers went to the Las Vegas Raiders, obviously he'd be reunited with his old friend Devontae Adams, perhaps the best receiver in the league, and they go back to Fresno State. However, that system is way different than the one Aaron Rodgers has played for a long time. So in a season where he's going to turn 40 years old, would he want to go to a new system under Josh McDaniels? That's a big question here. So I think in that regard, the Jets would be slight favorites, in my opinion, over the Raiders from a system fit standpoint. So I think the Jets would be all in on Rodgers if he's made available via a trade from the Green Bay Packers.
Dan, going back to Derek Carr, you mentioned he's going to take his time. David Carr's brother alluded to that. And, you know, when you think about it from the Jets' perspective, right, where they were out whining and dining him over the weekend, but he's going to go take his visits. You know, I think Carolina makes a lot of sense for him, just knowing his personality and maybe going to that media market as opposed to New York. But that all being said, from the Jets' perspective, is it a good thing that Derek Carr is taking his time to allow them to also figure out the Aaron Rodgers situation, so they're not, you know, forced to make a decision between one or the other, because Derek Carr is taking his time right now and you know, seeing what is out there.
Yeah, exactly. I think that Derek Carr is not number one on the Jets list right now. They like him, no doubt about it. And we should bring up Todd Downing, who is his offensive coordinator with the Raiders for a short time, is now at the Jets as the passing game coordinator. So there's a connection there. There's somebody there he's comfortable with. But the Jets have to see what's going on with Aaron Rodgers first. I think the whole world knows that. So Derek Carr, when I say he's the fallback option, that doesn't mean they don't like him, but I think Rodgers would be A1 on their list. And I think, you know, I love the Lombardi line. I love VSiN overall. I'm a big fan of the channel, and I love the Lombardi line. And I'm sure you know Michael Lombardi was talking with Patrick Maher on his show about the connection to Carolina and and it makes so much sense. And Frank Reich being a very devout man, and Derek Carr being very religious as well, and the connection there. And Charlotte is a very devout city. I'm sure you've been there. There's a church or place of worship on every corner. I'm not making light of that. I'm just saying I think it's a place that Derek Carr would be very comfortable. So I think when you look at Frank Reich and that Derek Carr possible connection, I think that could be a strong one. So, yeah, I think it's going to take time, and I think the Aaron Rodgers domino is a big part of that.
Dan, right now the quarterback situation, not ideal. When you have your owner coming out and saying what he said about, you know, going out and getting a quarterback, we know that the Jets are not happy with Zach Wilson. What is the future in your eyes for Zach Wilson, who not that long ago was selected second overall by this organization in the NFL draft?
Yeah, he was rushed into action too early, and they'll admit as much if you talk to them now. 21-year-old rookie coming out of BYU following a junior year that he beat up on the likes of Troy, North Texas, and Western Kentucky. Not trying to make light of those programs. I know that people who watch VSiN are interested in all these programs to make some wagers, and there's some fine people at those programs, but not a who's who, especially when it comes to defenses. He was throwing into wide open windows during that magical junior year he had for the Cougars. Comes into the NFL, windows are a lot smaller, defense is a lot more complicated, and he struggled mightily his 2 years on and off as a starter. He had some injuries that took him out of the lineup, and then he was benched in the second year. So the Jets are doing something very unique you don't see a lot. They're taking a timeout in his third year, and they're going to try to rework his mechanics and his footwork and his decision-making. You haven't seen this happen a lot in the NFL. Usually when a raw rookie comes in, they try to fix these things early on, like Trey Lance with the 49ers. Jets are going to try to do it in year three. Is this workable? I think it's a long shot, but maybe it will work. We all know he has very good raw tools, but, you know, when there was a report that the Jets view Derek Carr is a significant upgrade over Zach Wilson. And I don't really understand the report. Of course he is. They're looking to find a quarterback now who's going to start while Zach Wilson is in his timeout. So I don't think this is the time to be taking shots at Zach Wilson. We all know he needs to be fixed, but can he be fixed in his third year? And can he be fixed in the New York market? Where he had that misstep, after the New England game where he didn't take ownership for a terrible performance where the defense was so great. So can he be fixed here? I don't know. Maybe it'll be best for him to get a change of scenery.
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds, listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.